Hi, I wanted to go over the inquiry cycle plan and walk you through each section so you know what the goal is for each section and expectations for each section. So on the screen, you're going to see two sides to it. This is the blank inquiry cycle plan, and then here's the sample inquiry cycle plan, which can also be found in the induction handbook. So the first section, titled Goals. What is your ILP goal? You can copy and paste this directly from your individualized learning plan, your ILP. Copy and paste the CSTP elements that correspond with that goal. And then you're going to turn this goal into an inquiry question, open-ended. So if you look over here to the right, this goal is right here. I want to increase my proficiency in teaching Eureka to impact students' understanding of math. And down here for the inquiry question, how can my proficiency in teaching Eureka math impact my students' understanding in math concepts? So it's not closed and ended. It cannot be answered with a yes or no. Moving down, current reality. Current reality. So you're going to be looking at the class that you're doing this in for a second. So for example, if you're a middle school teacher and you're just focusing on your fifth period, you're answering these questions for your fifth period students only, not your entire population. If you're just focusing on your ELD group, elementary school teachers, you would just be answering this section for those students who are doing this inquiry cycle on. So the first question, describe the concerns you may have with your students, behavioral, academic, or emotional. The next question, describe the current needs of your English language students. So where are their placements? When they last were assessed for their English. And what does that tell you need to do in class? The last part of this question or this section, describe the current needs of your special population students. So if you have any students in your class who have a 504 or IEP or some type of modification or legal document, you need to describe the needs. So not what it says on there, but what the needs actually are. Oops. Going over here to the sample, you can see that for the sample, there are 3 students with emotional current concerns. And there was no academic concerns of this sample discussed. Current needs of your EL students, 5 students have been tested for, 5 are novice and 1 is intermediate. My EL students do well with visuals. So give a little bit about your EL students and describe the current needs of your population, your special population student. So if you have any students with speech, that's listed here. And in most cases, you will have more students with special population or who are classified under special populations, and you would describe them here. If you are a special education teacher, you can be broad and just give the number for each of the different classifications for your students in your class. For example, if you have an autism class, if you teach an autism class, you could say 5 of my students are mild to mod autism or mod to severe autism. I have 1 student who is, I don't know, receives services for mobility issues. Going down to pre-assessment, that's the next section. Describe the pre-assessment you administered. So this word describe is underlined for a reason. So what was the pre-assessment? Describe the data you gathered from that pre-assessment and how you will use that data to guide your instruction, lesson planning, decision making. And then you're going to either click the assessment, and that means that I should have access to it. If I click on it, make sure it's not private, or you can copy and paste the attachment. So right here for the description of the pre-assessment that I administered is the ESGI. They were tested on their writing up to 20 identified numbers. So that is a good description of the assessment. The next section below, describe the data you gathered. So this person put the scores in for each of the components that was assessed. And then this section is answering how you will use this data. So this data showed me the different areas that my students struggle with and where there is a strength. And that person goes on to talk about that. Next, they just copy and pasted the assessment results directly from their ESGI data. That is one way. Like I said, you either have the link or attach the data. The next part of the inquiry cycle plan is research and new learning. So you're going to see here that it says describe and reflect on the research and learning opportunities you took part in to support your goals. This could include PD sessions, videos, articles, seminars, staff development sessions, collegiate conversations, planning days, academic articles, spotlight visits, and other forms of professional learning. Those are a lot of examples. Research should include new learning from at least one of the following resources. So you will go on a spotlight visit this year at one point. It may be for your first goal or it may be for your second goal. There are a lot of informative videos on Curriculum Cafe and a lot of blog articles that can be especially helpful by our own Spotlight team in the Spotlight blog. And for those individuals who have a special education class or who are struggling learning what to do with their special education students in their Gen Ed class, these IRIS modules may be helpful for you. You are most likely going to have more than 4 research or new learning opportunities for your inquiry. However, you only have to document 4 of them. If you want to continue to document them, by all means, please do so. When you document them, you're going to put the title and then you're going to write a little bit about how that helps you or what you got from it or something you implemented or a change you made in your class based on that new learning opportunity. So it's describe and reflect. So going over here to the sample, you can see this person attended a Eureka module study. They talked about their learning and what they implemented there. The next one, they had a math lesson with small group. So they got to watch one of our Spotlight teachers teach a math small group lesson for as part of their PD. And they talked about the reflection and what they learned. The third piece of learning they included was a blog article. So it was Read, Draw, Write, and that was by one of our Spotlight teachers, Randy. They also included a picture that went with that. And then they also included another blog article from Randy. They highlighted some things that stood out from them. So the big part about the research and new learning is the whole part of this inquiry cycle is to learn and apply and reflect. So part of learning is, it goes along with CSTP6 and learning as a professional. So what are you going to do to better your understanding as a teacher to help your students? All right, the most important part here is the action. So your inquiry cycle is going to be anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks. Sometimes it's more, just depending on the content of your goal and if it needs to be a little bit longer. But typically you're going to have a minimum of 6 weeks of action. That means that it's not 6 weeks, including the pre-assessment and the end assessment. It's 6 weeks of you doing, learning, and trying and reflecting and figuring out what's working and what's not working. That's the point of an inquiry cycle. These questions are really beneficial to when you're talking about each of your week's actions. Your mentor can also ask you some of these questions, or if you get stuck, maybe you need to change something in your class. So answering these questions or being able to think about them is going to help you. And the yellow highlighted part, weekly actions and reflections, should be documented at the end of the week and therefore written in the past tense because it's things that you have already done. What is the action that you took this week? So going over, going down, week 1, you're going to put the date right here. And then you have 3 different columns. So you're going to have action over on the left. In the middle, you're going to have reflection or next steps. And then on the right, you're going to have any evidence that you put there. Pictures, videos, student work, a link to the evidence, maybe slides that you presented to your class and you wanted to include those in there. You do not have to have evidence for every week, but you do need evidence to show that you are learning, that you are implementing, that this action that you wrote about is taking place. So let's go over here to the example. So week 1, this is my first week in my inquiry where I'm focused on my understanding in Eureka math to better teach my students and help make learning. After meeting with Rosie, I decided to use Great Minds as a resource to teach Eureka. I had Great Minds displayed on my computer, and then I had my paper reflected on the big screen for all the students to see. I used Great Minds to break up each section for me. So this person just talks about what they did. They talked about their reflection and the next step. They included just a picture of the Great Minds website because they said they used that. And then there is an example of their students working on it. Looks like number bonds during the next time. You can see that they do this for each of the weeks. So this week I continued using manipulatives and Great Minds while I taught Eureka. Last week I felt like I was most focused on the fluency portion. So they just talk about what they did this week. As you can see, they have reflection, but they have no evidence, and that's okay for that. Week 3 is a little bit shorter, talking about what they did in terms of their goal, what is their reflection, and what is their next steps. And you can see that they're working on groupings over here, so they have a picture of the different students in their group. So we go all the way down, they fill up those weeks. And then we get down to the post-assessment data. So this top part, so I'm going back over here to the blank one, describe the summative assessment you administered. You're going to describe it the same as you described the pre-assessment. Describe the data you gathered and analyzed from the summative assessment, and then link or attach an image of that. So post-assessment, in this example over here on the right, it's the ESGI February assessment. They have all of the scores, the actual scores, and then they broke it down even further to show the growth for each of these tested categories. And then here is the actual results. And you can see this person analyzed the data. This post-assessment result shows me that more than 2/3 of my class are proficient in this area. So that's super exciting when you get a look at the data and see growth. The last part of the inquiry cycle plan is the reflection. So after you put your research and new learning into action, you implemented a series of lessons for 6 to 8 weeks. Describe the end result for each goal by responding to the following prompts. So you're going to go down and answer each of these questions. Did your students show negative or positive growth? Did your lessons make a significant impact on student learning? How do you know? What would you do the same? What would you do differently? What factors played a role for students making little to no progress? What factors played a role for students showing significant growth? Number 6, what strategies supported your English learners and special population students? And then number 7 is finally just your final thoughts or reflections of your aha moments that you took away from this journey of working on this goal. In this sample that's posted on the right, she already described her assessment data up here in detail. So she just kind of recapped it with most students right here. She answered each of these questions. And that is your inquiry cycle plan. So please make sure that, I'm going to make this large, that you are thorough with what you're writing. So the big part again is you need to keep up. Let me go back down. You need to keep up on your weekly data. So when we're talking about your weekly action, this needs to be done every week. Don't wait until your week 3 and your mentor asks you, have you done your weekly inquiry cycle update? You're going to forget things and it's not going to be as authentic as it should be. Thank you for listening.